Yeah.
We'll see.
Oh, goodness. Andy, you don't need any endorsement. You just wait it out. Used to be it, so.
Yeah, Mr. Falk is on now.
Okay, good. Okay, the Grand Forks County Commission meeting will come to order. Please note for the record that Commissioner Engen was here a moment ago. Commissioner Engen is in the building. He will be coming momentarily, and Commissioner Falk is available online. Based on Commissioner Falk not being here, we will table the election of the chair and the vice chair for our next commission meeting on December 21st. So that will not take place until then. We'll move forward and go to the approval of the minutes.
So move.
Is there a second to that motion? All right, assuming a roll call vote, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the order of the agenda.
So move.
Okay, there is a motion to approve the order. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, assuming a roll call vote, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. The next item is the approval of the consent agenda. We have bills, employee status changes, overtime, county deeds, and beer and liquor licenses. Would anybody like to have anything pulled? for further discussion? Yes,
I have a question and it relates to the application for the beer license.
yes.
And so just a little confused on there because if you look down at number 7, it says, I'm just not sure of the process. It says, will you personally conduct the business on premises herein before described and for which license is applied? And the answer is no. And if not, state name, age, citizenship, place of residence of person who will be in charge thereof. And it's not yet determined. So all I am confused is that if somebody's applying for a beer license, but we don't know, apparently there's a business, but whoever, there's nobody that's conducting or been identified as the person that's going to conduct the business, nor do they know any of that yet. So I mean, is that normal?
I will have to defer that to Ms. Wamstead. The application is
Who's
for
liable?
a residence in Manville, North Dakota. It is currently being constructed. Construction business owner and Rest and Relax LLC. So it is a legally liable, no, legally, what's LLC? Limited liability. The signature on the application is Mr. Gary Dube. He is from Manville, North Dakota. I can refer this to Ms. Wamstead if you need to see that according to what Commissioner Knopf is talking about, number 7 on the front.
It just seemed odd to me, and that's all. I mean, I don't have a problem with it, but
Madam Chair, members of the commission, I'm not sure if this is a requirement. Perhaps we could just table this issue. I could look into it for the next meeting. And then perhaps they could either supplement their application or we could review it in 2 weeks.
Is that the only license that we have for beer and liquor application, or is there others?
There are 2.
Okay, so we could table the one for this particular application, and then we could pass the other one in the consent agenda. Would that work best, Ms. Lundstedt? Okay, then that will be the plan with the consent agenda. We will wait on the one for the Manville property, since it seems like that one is being built at this time, it's being constructed. So we can get more information on that for the next meeting on December 21st. So what are the wishes of the consent agenda? Anything else to be pulled? Okay,
So is it just a matter of approving the consent agenda
Less.
less their
particular-
beer license for
Correct.
rest and relaxation?
great, that will be looked at for the next meeting.
That'll be my motion.
Okay, is there a second to that motion? All right, assuming a roll call vote, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. That particular application will be go into the next consent agenda and get further information on it. All right, the next item on the agenda, number 6, is the Director of Administration, Mr. Ford.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the commission, thank you. A few items for the board tonight. The first is the extension of the contract between BM Finley Consulting LLC and the County of Grand Forks, North Dakota. The commission would know them as Lieutenant General Rusty Finley and Lieutenant General Bill Rue. They have been providing base retention consulting services since 2014 to the county. I think we could say too that there's been a lot of success while they've been on board with us, from the realignment of the base from AMC to ACC, the consignment of the consolidation of the Global Hawk mission, and now some exciting recent announcements about ISR FY30, which is the mission we can't know about, training mission and some other missions. So a lot of success since they've been on board with us. Their contract with the county is set to expire December 31st of this year. So asking the commission to approve the extension of their contract for another 12 months to provide base retention consulting services. That includes an $8,000 a month retainer, which is split between Generals Finley and Rue at $4,000 apiece, and $25,000 for travel expenses when they travel with the community to the Pentagon, Langley Air Force Base, Lackland Air Force Base. That totals $121,000, and that money is in my 2022 budget. Would be looking for approval of the extension and chair signature. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Commissioner Engen.
I move approval of the request. Second, extend.
Okay, Commissioner Knopf, did you have a
No, I
question?
was gonna make a motion.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Assuming a roll call vote, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. The next item is with my approval, Mr. Sawyer sent 2 subleases to the county's outside EUL attorney, Mr. George Schlossberg, who's with us on Zoom in case there's questions. He has reviewed them on behalf of the county to make sure that they do fit within the site development lease between the county and the United States Air Force. And he has determined that they do meet the qualifications of the SDL and would recommend the county move them along to the Air Force. If you recall, when we have a sublease between among or between 2 private sector businesses with proprietary information, we use our outside counsel there to keep that information protected. And so this is a process we use consistently. So I don't, Mr. Schlossberg, you're with us. I don't know if you have any comments or thoughts, but we would be looking to grant, or the commission to grant permission to Mr. Schlossberg to send those subleases on to Air Force and Engineering. So I don't know if Mr. Schlossberg, if you had any comments while you're with us.
No, I would only, I reviewed the documents, as everyone on it will recall, the Air Force leased the property to the county, and the lease from the Air Force requires that all subleases, which would allow occupancy of Air Force premises, be approved by the Air Force. So when the county subleased the property to the master developer, we went through this process. The Air Force reviewed and approved it, and all subsequent subleases have gone through this process as well. So what we are asking is that the county approve the sublease and authorize me to send it to the Air Force for the Air Force to similarly review and approve the sublease. And the sublease would be effective when the Air Force approves it.
Okay, does any commissioners have any questions of Mr. Schlossberg or Mr. Ford at this time? If you have no questions, what are the wishes of the commission?
I'll make a motion to approve, to move forward with that, with the lease agreements.
Okay, are you talking about letter B or letter B and C?
B and C?
Okay,
Yes.
My apologies, Madam Chair, members of the commission, that it's two subleases, but asking for one decision to send both on. So
And it would be this one.
so you're making a motion for both subleases?
And to move them forward.
Okay, thank you. All right, is there a second to that motion?
Motion to second.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Falk. Assuming a roll call vote, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. The motion is carried. Thank you, Mr. Schlossberg, very much for joining in with us.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Madam Chair, we actually have Lieutenant General Finley with us as well. So you just tuned in just in time, General Finley, to have your contract extension approved by the board. So
Oh,
just
well,
point out that he's on. So
Okay,
okay, good timing on my part, right? I just got back from my daughter's place with my granddaughter's birthday celebration. So that's why I'm a few minutes late. We just got back from Denver, just rolled into the house from the airport. So
that's okay.
thank you, guys.
Well, both of those subleases were approved.
Thank you.
So-
Excellent reason to be late, Rusty.
Yeah. Congratulations. All right,
Thank you
thanks.
very
All
much.
right, bye.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, moving along, as you're aware, staff and the state's attorney have been working with ICON on a construction management at risk request for proposal. There are a few things have come up. We do have members from ICON with us. I believe Mr. Cavani and Mitzler with us as well, but Ms. Wamstad's reviewed it and has a couple of comments. So I'm actually going to just defer to her now on this subject.
Thank you, Mr. Ford. Madam Chair, members of the commission. Like Mr. Ford had indicated, we've been working with the ICON folks on a RFQ for a construction management at risk delivery method for the Correctional Center construction project. Essentially, under the law, there are two options available to the governing board. Agency construction management structure or construction management at risk structure. It's my understanding that ICON is recommending the construction management at risk. I'll leave it to them to discuss or answer the questions of the board as to what their recommendation is. Either way, before proceeding with publishing that RFQ, the statute requires the board make the following determinations. There are three, and I'll list all of them for your awareness. Number one, that it's in the best interest of the public to utilize the agency construction manager or construction manager at risk public improvement delivery method. 2, that the agency construction manager or construction manager at risk planning and design phase services will not duplicate services normally provided by an architect or engineer. And 3, that the agency construction manager or construction manager at risk construction services will be in addition to and not duplicate the services provided for in the architect and engineering contracts. So essentially, we'd need a motion by the board to make each of those 3 determinations before we proceed with publishing an RFQ for the construction delivery method determined by the board. I know those 3 items is a bit overwhelming, but Mr. Ford kindly included them in the memo he prepared for the commission. I believe it's under his recommendation section on page 39 of the packet, on the bottom of the page, number 3. And I would just note that the icon folks, Mr. Mitzel and Mr. Kavami, are also present. They're probably far more qualified to explain the difference between each of these delivery methods to the board or entertain any questions if you have.
Okay, do any commissioners want Mr. Mitzel and Mr. Kavami to explain?
Yeah.
These 3? Okay, Mr.
Great.
Mitzel, Mr. Kavami, yes. If you would please give the information, share the information of what you know with the 3 different proposals, please.
Sure, I'll start out. This is Mr. Mitzel. Can you hear me okay, Madam Chairman?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So we'll start out kind of describing again, and I think we, Kyle maybe presented some of this months ago, a little bit about some of the differences between the delivery methods. There's actually, I think, 3 different delivery methods. You have your traditional design bid build, you have your construction manager agency, and then you have a construction manager at risk. The county has actually used all of these different approaches over, actually not the CMAR, this is a new approach, but they've used the past ones. And I might be able to use some examples of that if you wish in your past experiences, but generally speaking, the CMAR, the reason we recommend that is number 1, you get to go through a selection process to interview and understand who will be the contractor in charge of the work. Another big benefit is that unlike the agency, construction manager agency method, you would have one contract with one firm. That would be the construction manager at risk you would have the contract with. Under the agency methodology, you actually will have somewhere between 20 and 30 separate contracts. So you'd have a contract for the painter, you'd have a contract for the steel erector, you'd have a contract for someone doing concrete. You get my drift. It becomes very intense for you to manage or to have 30 different contracts. If there's a problem with any one of those, you as the county would have to, take a legal action against each and every one of those potential contractors. So having one contract, one sole source for responsibility for the entire project is one of the benefits as well. Kyle, I don't know if you have any others to add. I think those are the 2 major ones we promote.
Yeah, no, just and that transparency and the ability to control who it is that we're working with. I think that's key, and even being able to go beyond and look at past experiences and things like that with traditional design bid build you can't.
I'd maybe add one additional piece, and that is simply, they're working with us from the beginning of the design all the way through bidding and construction. So they're part of a team, as opposed to some of the other traditional methods, which you bring them on later in the process, and therefore they're playing a little bit of catch up, or maybe aren't bought into a lot of the discussions that we've had as the owner architect. So it just is a lot more collaborative methodology for going through a project.
Okay, do any of the commissioners have any questions at this time of Mr. Mitzel or Mr. Kavami? Okay. And Mr. Ford, then your recommendation would be?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, I think if this has been, if any questions, or they've all been sufficed, then the commission just needs a motion to continue on with the CMRQ so that staff can then get the RFP out.
So move.
All right, Mr. Commissioner Ross has a motion on the floor. Is there a second to that motion? Second by, do you have a question?
No, I'll second.
Okay, and a second by Commissioner Knopf. Assuming a roll call vote, all those in favor, oh, sorry.
Just for clarification purposes, does the motion include those 3 essential findings that I've outlined and Mr. Ford included in his?
Yes.
Yes.
And
Yes,
you
ma'am.
both, okay. All right, then do we need to, what we need in that motion? Second. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Assuming a roll call vote, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion is carried.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One last thing for my report is a change order that came in from our friends at Icon, which would need chair's signature. It's a good news change order. It's pertaining to the COVID remodel in the state's attorney's office, and it's a deduct of $10,000. Good news. We just asking for chair's signature to accept that change order.
Okay, what are the wishes of the commission?
Move approval of the change order for the chair to sign.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded. Assuming a roll call vote, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. All right, is that everything, Mr. Ford?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much. Our next item, number 7, on the agenda is public health, a COVID-19 update, and Ms. Swanson is with us today. Welcome.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, I did send out our COVID weekly update to you earlier today, and I'm not going to go through all the data. I think you've seen it quite a bit before, but I want to highlight a couple of things, both in the report and then some additional COVID information. On the 4th page of this report, you will notice that we've got an intersection of year 2020 and 2021 in our 7-day average. They are intersecting right now. So our cases at that point in time intersect with where we were last year on that downward slope of our very large peak that we had there in November and December. And so we are on a trajectory that's somewhat of a what we call a sawtooth pattern, but it's been sustained. And so that's concerning to us that we still have the sustained case rate, knowing that we have some interventions that are widely available to us. The second thing I wanted to note, and this is even more sobering, is that today we achieved the notoriety of having 100 deaths in Grand Forks County since the beginning of the pandemic. That's really hard because there are people behind every one of those numbers. I do want to say though that Grand Forks County has done better than our peer counties when it comes to death rates. So we are doing better, but it's certainly a number we want to keep our eye on, and we all probably know somebody that has succumbed to this disease, so we cannot let our guard down. I also wanted to just add a couple of things about the Omicron variant. You've been probably reading about it in the newspaper. It is considered a variant of concern by the Centers for Disease Control, and it's now in, I believe, 18 states, or at least that's what I heard this morning when I checked. North Dakota, as of this morning, did not have any variants detected in our surveillance testing that's ongoing. The state has very good surveillance testing, both in our wastewater as well as the human samples that we take from people to be tested. And they do surveillance, but also some targeted testing for variants there. We're still seeing primarily Delta, but we expect that we will see some Omicron given that it's spreading in the US. One of the factors that's used for determining if a sample should be further tested for variants is travel. So if we have people that have traveled to other areas affected, they may get their sample tested for the variant and could very likely have it, even if they're vaccinated, because we know that some breakthrough cases are happening, but they're still very rare. The vast majority of cases we are seeing that are hospitalized are in people who are unvaccinated. We're still studying the impact of the Omicron variant as to whether it's going to be more transmissible. It looks to be that it is right now, but the final determination on that has not yet been made. And in terms of the disease severity, it appears that the vaccines are still working, but we will know more in a few weeks as the CDC studies that. But we just know that the vaccines are still our best opportunity. We now have boosters available for everyone over the age of 18 who has had a primary series or 1 dose of Johnson & Johnson vaccine. And we are also doing pediatric vaccinations all the way down to age 5. So we continue to operate our vaccination clinic at the Grand Cities Mall, and we're seeing a good turnout there. People, right now it's largely booster doses. We kind of expected that. Those people that have already widely accepted the vaccine, but we do continue to see some first and second doses as well. So that is the majority of my report, and I would be happy to entertain any questions if you have any.
Do any of the commissioners have any questions of this one? Commissioner Ross?
Do you need to make an appointment to go in the Grand Cities Mall?
Commissioner Ross, appointments are appreciated, but they're not necessary. We have been able to accommodate walk-in.
Okay.
Any other questions? Ms. Swanson, I do have a question. Do we have an adequate amount of the doses for our younger children?
Commissioner Peach, yes, we do. We have pediatric doses in the community. Fairfax Public Health doesn't always have a supply readily available to prevent wastage. We tend to have special clinics where we make that available. And I should also mention, as part of our health equity grant, we'll be doing clinics on Thursdays where we'll have more interpreters available for individuals too. But right now we do have enough pediatric vaccine in the community because it's widely available also at pharmacies and health systems.
That's good to hear. Thank you. And thank you very much for all your staff that continue to work hard, and for everyone that has put an effort in, whether it's volunteers or first responders, for everything they've done for our community to try to get our dosage levels up, and hopefully try to beat these variants. It's very important.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
I do have one additional item that I sent to the commission. Is it appropriate to entertain? Thank you. This was submitted, but I forgot to send a reminder that we are at a point now where we need an additional or a new agreement for funding our job that we've been operating since 2016. And the county's contribution is included in a document that I sent earlier today along with a cover letter. So we are just looking for the to continue in support of our social detox withdrawal management center for another year. This will encompass the calendar of January to December of 2022, and we did submit it as a budget item in the budget process this past summer.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, Ms. Swanson did submit it timely, and I forgot to put it on the agenda. And it is, like she said, included in the 2022 budget.
Okay, so we've got it in the 2022 budget, so we're looking for just a motion to pass and to utilize chair to sign for that contract that we hold. Okay, is there a second to that motion?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. It's going to be a roll call vote. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hey Debbie, what are the hours for that Grand City Mall?
Commissioner Ross, the hours vary by the day. We start every day at 12:30 and they end anywhere between 4:30 and 6. And then on Saturdays, that is a fixed time and it's from 10 to 2. And then I should also mention that the North Dakota Department of Health also stands up a clinic at the Walmart on Gateway on Sundays. And I believe that runs like noon to 4 or noon to 6. So we actually have vaccinations available 7 days a week.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. All right, the next item on our agenda is emergency management. Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Two items for you today, both of them have to do with the same project. The buyout of the property in Arbella, known as the Mark Pierce property. The first one is a contract between Grand Forks County and the Red River Regional Council. As you recall, at the last meeting, Stacy said I needed kind of a presentation. She would be the project manager on this, which means she handles the lion's share of the legwork, the paperwork, in filling out the application for FEMA to get the buyout property move forward. So I would ask for chair's signature on that, and again, to remind you that Grand Forks County will not incur any long-term costs for this. We'll pay upfront costs, and they'll all be reimbursed through the grant. So I think this is pretty self-explanatory, this letter. And she outlined the costs and the fees down below, and then the client share, which would be the homeowner. So we did not incur. This has also been reviewed by Ms. Lawson, so I don't believe she had any concerns.
Okay. So what are the wishes? Does the commission have any questions for Ms. Getz?
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Falk. Yeah, Kari, is it my understanding that all of these expenses would be reimbursed because we already pay Red River Management a substantial amount of money every year. So I want to make sure that this will be reimbursed to us.
Yes, this will all be reimbursed through the grant, sir.
Thank you. Motion to approve.
Okay, with the chair's signature, Commissioner Falk?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, then assuming a roll call vote, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, fine. Motion is carried.
And then the second one in your packet is the memorandum of agreement between Grand Forks County and Mark Pierce. Because as far as local government, they deal with counties, they don't deal with townships. Therefore, that's why we needed the county to be the applicant for this grant. This agreement is between the county and the landowner, outlining the roles and responsibilities for which Grand Forks County will have to apply for the federal funding under the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. This is also something that I worked with State's Attorney Longstead on, and I did put all of your suggestions in here, ma'am. So this would also require chair signature, and after we have that, then we would send it to Mr. Pierce and get his signature.
Okay, are there any questions by the commission?
I would make a motion to approve with chair's signature.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Assuming a roll call vote, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried.
That's all I have for you tonight. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is juvenile detention. Ms. Hanson.
Madam Chair and members of the commission, this is just more of an informational meeting that I wanted to inform everybody of what is happening within the detention center and the attendant care site. Back in March, when social services folder, we had redone the attendant care site and signed a contract with YouthWorks to enter in with to provide the attendant care site to provide care for those that were brought in and for the shelter care area. A week before Halloween, we had no staffing for that facility. They were running into all kinds of problems, hiring people and showing up and so forth. And actually the attendant care site shut down, and it just opened this past Monday. So I had talked with Tom about it because we were under contract. The contract was signed, I believe, in July, and it was renewed for 2022. But there was a clause in there that if they were not operational, that we could take a look at it again, either cease operation, take over, or whatever. I spoke with Melanie Heitkamp and the youth work people, and they just got done with their staffing. And what's been a problem for them is their background checks and making sure that people are available for staff and that they actually show up. So I did talk with Tom because I had concerns about it because I will be retiring at the end of this month. And I thought, if this proceeds, it's gonna be a problem for the county with the attendant care kids. So I have dealt with the OJJDP people at the state capitol, with Lisa Johnner and with Melanie Heitkamp. And there's a new statute that has come out, and I did give it to Haley. I just wanted to read it because pursuant to the new statute, which is North Dakota Century Code 2720, unruly youth who are now considered children in need of services, they're called CHINs. Effective August 1st of 2022, these youth will no longer be referred to juvenile court, but will be referred to the human service zone. So these kids cannot come into the attendant care site. Attendant care will no longer be applicable for these youth at that time. However, with the new administrative rule 7503.14.1, once a facility becomes a certified shelter, they will no longer be able to commingle with the CHINs kids. So entry-level delinquents cannot be with the unruly CHINs kids who are in need of services. So that creates a problem for us because we have delinquent kids upstairs. We have an attendant care site downstairs that can handle those entry-level delinquents. I dealt with, the past 3-4 days now, going back and forth, and Melanie Heitkamp believes that under the human service zone, they probably will relinquish those delinquent kids that are coming into the attendant care site to be supervised, but she's not sure. She wants to know what direction we want to go with. And the state under the OJJDP wants the detention center to oversee that area. And they will support that area and provide this, the stipend, and they will match our entry level rate of pay for their officers. They just believe that the kids that are coming into that site are going to be, they're tough kids. They're not kids that we're holding upstairs that are felony delinquents, but they're kids that are in need of, they believe, better supervision. And our staff is trained in corrections, and they believe that that's the direction we should go. So what I just want you to know is that I believe March 1st, there will be a transition period. I've spoken with Tom about, staying on when that period comes to come back in and facilitate that happening. So,
Thank you.
Yeah, there's also, I just wanted to let you know that the average length of stay for the kids coming into custodial care was 4 days. And last year it went to 10 days, and now we're sitting at 20 days. So we're seeing tougher kids coming in staying longer. In 2019, we had 186 kids in detention. Of those 186 now, with the new statutes and the laws changing, 63 of them would be going into that attendant care site. So that will be a big change. And in 2020, we had 115 kids that came in. And right now we're sitting at 80 because we're just taking the tougher kids that need to be there. And with that area that was closed for that 6-week period, it's tough for the police department, sheriff's department, any law enforcement agency that arrests a juvenile that needs to be brought in and taken off the street, especially at this time of the year. Right now they're operational, but I believe we're going to look at that again. And coming March 1st, there will be changes that will be made where our detention staff will maybe, bring some of those employees back up. But the nice thing is that OJJDP will pay for the cost of that supervision. And if it's averaged like 5 kids a month for 24 hours, the $35,000 that's currently in our budget that has gone to YouthWorks will be back into our budget or whatever to oversee that area. And the only other thing is if those kids in need, that shelter care area has to be cordoned off. There may have to be a wall put up to temporarily still provide for the shelter care kids, but to keep them from sight and sound for the CHINs kids and the delinquents. Does I explain that well enough? It's hard because the statute, I didn't get to send it, but I'm just going to give you the packet. And in this packet also is a scoring tool. And it's a screening tool that law enforcement has to use to score the kids that come into custodial care. And it's tough. We're not letting everybody into that detention center. They have to score a certain number of felony charges. I think that, did I give that? But we're following that criteria, so we're, so we can meet the needs for the county. But we'll have to look again at that contract and determine what's best for Grand Forks County. I believe the staff that we have right now are excellent. We, in the very beginning operations of the detention center, we, maintained status offenders and delinquents, and it was, we had 4 units, and we had over 500 kids when we first opened. And then in 91, it separated where we only took the delinquents, and now it's the severe delinquents that are scoring higher on the scoring tool. But it's difficult for the police department when they need to send a kid that's been in a domestic fight with their parent and they have a simple assault and they need to go into the attendant care site and it's not open. Or, and that child could be, it's more of a 24-hour diffusing where the child then, after 24 hours, everybody's settled down and the child can go home. Sometimes those kids would go into the CHIN program because they believe that going home would not be suitable either. But the funding's not going to be there. It'll be for one or the other. And under the CHIN, with Youth Works will probably take those kids in need and shelter care, and they'll be paid through the human service zone for the supervision and protection of those children. Any questions? It's a lot.
Do you have any questions? Well, Ms. Hanson, on behalf of the county, thank you very much for your years of service.
Thank you.
Congratulations on your retirement.
Thank you.
And we hope that you have lots of time to spend with your family.
I will. I'm gonna do a lot of fishing. Not ice fishing though, just regular fishing.
Stay safe and don't go out there.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All right, the next item on our agenda is premium pay. Mr. Ford.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the commission, just a quick recap, set the stage. During the November 2nd commission meeting, Ms. Thiel and I had presented a premium pay plan through the American Rescue Plans Act. And that was at the board's direction to explore that and see what the options are for the county. Ms. Thiel and I, we utilized what you've heard me refer to many times as the interim final rule that was issued by the Treasury. And what that IFR is it literally tells counties and cities and states what they can and can't do with the ARPA funds. So what Ms. Thiel and I did was we followed the IFR definitions of essential employees. We followed the IFR categories of essential employees, and that is how we came up with what was presented and the commission approved. After that approval, the commission did direct Ms. Thiel and me to work with the state's attorney on possibly expanding the eligibility beyond what's categorized in the IFR. We've had a couple of meetings, and I'm actually going to now give it over to Ms. Wamstad to go over her findings.
Thank you, Mr. Ford. Madam Chair, members of the commission, similar to Mr. Ford and Ms. Thiel, I had an opportunity to review the American Rescue Plan Act as well as the interim final rule issued by the Department of Treasury, which provides some guidance as to what types of positions would qualify for the premium pay. Essentially, we need to follow the federal requirements or risk repayment of any of the funds expended in violation of those requirements. What my research determined was that an eligible worker is somebody that is needed to maintain continuity of operations of essential critical infrastructure sectors. And each local government recipient has discretion to add additional sectors to this list, so long as the additional sectors are deemed critical to protect the health and well-being of the residents of their jurisdiction. In addition to qualifying as an eligible worker, each worker has to be performing essential work. The guidance provided is that it's not performed while teleworking from a resident, and it also must involve regular in-person interactions with patients, the public, or coworkers of the individual that is performing the work, or regular physical handling of items that were handled by or are able to be handled by patients, the public, coworkers of the individual that is performing the work. So there is some discretion as to what types of positions would qualify for the premium pay. With that said, it's also important that when premium pay is distributed, it's administered in a fair and equitable manner. And so it's important for the board to consider, you know, all county employees and whether they meet the criteria for each across the board. I'm open to any questions that the board may have as well.
Anybody have any questions? Commissioner Engen.
I think there was discussion of the various possible employees who would be involved, and if we where do we draw the line on where somebody who is qualified for this premium pay and who is not? And some of the ones that we've paid so far are obvious, but where do we stand with all the rest who are close to the decision one way or another?
Commissioner Engen, members of the board, I think it would be important for the board to consider criteria under which certain positions would be deemed eligible, and then all employees should be reviewed under the same criteria so that it is administered in a fair and equitable manner. What that criteria is would be up to them.
So, Mr. Ford, at this point, we have made a motion and passed that motion to give a stipend to individuals that were involved dealing with COVID, correct? With the pandemic that we had?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, yes, so the policy that the commission set was based on county employees. Obviously, we can't cut payroll checks to folks that aren't county employees. But it was defined in the rule as sheriff's deputies, correctional officers, public health workers, emergency management, facilities. Am I missing one? I think that's all of them. Because that was our county departments who fit that criteria. We also had to keep it, I guess, fair. It was also decided that you had to have been employed with the county the entire, you still had to have been employed with the county at the time the county made the motion. So anything outside of that now, Madam Chair, is a policy exception by the board.
Okay, so at this time, our options would be to go ahead with the policy that we already have in place, correct?
Yes, ma'am, and the essential pay has been already provided to correctional officers, sheriff's deputies, public health workers, emergency management. So that's already been provided. So at this point, I know that there was some discussion at the November 2nd meeting about adding more employees beyond what was already defined. So as Ms. Wamstead said, it's really a board decision now if you want to go beyond what those categories were, but then how do you define, or how do you, I guess, define those categories? Mm-hmm.
So this has already been reviewed by Director of Administration and by Human Resources, and that determination has been made countywide. I believe there was some concerns that came up of other individuals that were mentioned that should be looked at too. At this point, I feel it's redundant for Human Resources, the Director of Administration, Ms. Wamstead, to take a look at that list. If there is a concern of the commission that this should be reviewed once again, my suggestion would be that there be two commissioners, I would say two commissioners that would be a committee to review this list to determine if that policy should be changed or altered at this point. I feel that we've already asked for the time that Human Services, Human Resources, and Director of Administration and our state's attorney staff have already put into it. I believe that if we feel We still need to review this policy, that should be done by a committee of 2 on the commission. Sheriff Schneider.
Hi, I'm pretty sure we're all just talking about me and my presentation that I gave at that meeting. So I was asked to submit information to HR and Mr. Ford regarding the Sheriff's Office support staff that was required to work in person in these specific requirements, etc. I also read through the ARPA rule, and I'm not asking for any exceptions to that rule. I believe that the letter provided details in enough depth that they meet those requirements. I think that the hiccup that happened in the beginning of this was I was told that prior to anything being submitted to the commission regarding sheriff's personnel, that I would be sat down with and discussed about who was applicable. And that meeting never happened. So I wasn't aware until a week and a half, maybe prior to that meeting, that support staff wasn't included. I just found out from seeing a list of the people that were paid out that a deputy that was employed for all but 2 months of that time frame and left our agency, but has since came back and has been employed since the commission voted on it. He also did not receive the pay. So if we would have that meeting, I would have been aware of this, but that's why this is coming about now in the second commission meeting after it was decided, is I wasn't given that opportunity to express that. Again, I'm not asking for any special exceptions from the commission. My support staff didn't sign up to work through a pandemic, much like some other people that were given the money. Law enforcement, we signed up to get shot at, to go protect people, to go places that you don't want to go. You want to give us premium pay, give it to us, and we're going to serve evictions or going to a domestic involving weapon, not to go out and serve during a time of a pandemic of COVID. And we appreciate that you did give it to us, but our job's a little more risky day to day than that. Our support staff didn't sign up to work through that, and they were subject to working through it. We weren't working behind glass. We weren't working from home. They are essential to this public service. If you want us to evict people out of your places that you own, you have to come give those papers to us. You have to pay a fee. That's not all done behind glass. You want us to serve a protection order, a restraining order, you need to come to our office and give us those papers. So they also, one criteria that I didn't hear that was laid out is you're supposed to prioritize the people that make the least amount of money in the departments. There's nobody paid less in the sheriff's office than our support staff. So I wasn't asking for any exceptions. Again, it was not brought to my attention until way late in the game. I didn't have that sit down meeting to discuss the staff. And that's why I brought it up. So I just want to make sure, since we're talking about the sheriff's office, and I know that they brought up every other county agency, some that weren't county agencies at that meeting. That wasn't what I was looking for. I was asking for you to consider these individuals that were working in an open building that had to work in person and couldn't work from home.
Thank you, Sheriff Schneider. Does anyone have any questions of Sheriff? Mr. Ford.
Madam Chair, the goal was for Ms. Thiel and I to sit down with the sheriff, Mr. Burkholder, Ms. Hanson, Mr. Gershewski, and Ms. Swanson, and talk about how we came to what we came with. Reality situation didn't happen. Ms. Thiel sent a lengthy email to the 5 department heads I just named, detailing how we came to what we came with. Here's the interim rule. That's how we based it off of. It was sent to all 5 of those department heads. I didn't get one response from a department head on who was going to get the premium pay. I don't think you did either. So it was provided to the department heads how we came to the determination and who was going to get it. And I didn't hear anything. No, we didn't get to the meeting, but we did get the information out, and I didn't hear anything back. So,
and Madam Chair, I did not receive a list of people that were going to get it at the sheriff's office. If that went to other department heads, I did not receive that. The only individuals that I received comment on were the chief deputy and the captain about how much interaction they had with the public.
Okay, any other questions? Commissioner Engen.
What other departments are in the same situation? Or are we talking about just a few support staff in the sheriff's department? Or are we talking about departments across the county that would also qualify under this kind of criteria. I know social services people have worked directly with people during the pandemic, certainly public health. Of course, they're on the list, but what's the status of other departments and other possible claims? What's the impact of all that?
Well, Madam Chair, Commissioner Engen, that would entail a sit down with each department head to ask. So when we did this, again, we went through what was defined in the interim final rule, right? So we reached out to those 5 departments to ask to get information on their employees. We didn't reach out to the state's attorney's office. We didn't reach out to finance and tax. We didn't reach out to social services because they're state. We didn't reach out to the recorder's office. So I don't know to answer your question because those weren't named in the rule. So again, it's a policy exception now at this point if the commission wants to open it up, but it would take some more research.
Madam Chair, to that point, or I'm sorry, Mr. Engen, I would also say to that point that public safety was laid out in the interim rule as not an exception. That public safety is listed in the rule.
No, I understand that, but what's the potential impact in the county if we include support staff in one area? And I know they do it an interaction and they can't kind of avoid it, but is that the case with other departments? Do we create a problem with the rest of the department heads if we make it include the sheriff's support staff and not other support staff? I guess I'd like to know how anyone has analyzed that potential issue. Ms. Steele, maybe?
Chair Peach, Commissioner Engen, at this point, if you wanted to consider the admin staff at the sheriff's department to be fair and consistent, then you would need to look at all the departments, as Ms. Wamstad was discussing, set a criteria, and then look at all the other departments in the county. Because that's, like Tom had said, we can't do anything with social services or human service zone because all their compensation is under the state. So we can't do anything there. Have we heard from other departments? Yes, we have heard from other departments. I have received telephone calls from the community where they've said, hey, I'm a county employee because I work in the county. But if you wanted to go beyond that, we would, if that's the decision that's made here, then to be fair and consistent, we'd have to look at all of the positions. And right now, a rough estimate, all I did was a very rough estimate. It would be an additional 95 people approximately. And it would be and this is just a total rough number. It is taking all the rest of the employees, not counting social services, and looking at whether they were employed during the months that were covered. And right at this point, it's an additional $183,000. So it's pretty much double what we already did.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Ms. Steele, how many of those people were actually working in the building and not at home?
I have no idea. We would need
Okay.
to go through and we would have to analyze by talking to every single department head
Okay,
and make the determination.
okay, I think that needs to be done because they were in the office every day, Monday through Friday, and they were collecting taxes, they were collecting money on warrants, fingerprinting, I mean, you name it, they were doing it. And I think it needs to be looked at. I seriously do.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Ross, Michelle, I can, so in Mr. Excuse me, the sheriff did provide a very well written, very well put out letter. Ms. Lomsek can tell me if I'm incorrect, but there is a section 2 on the premium pay that if there is staff that was in the office and had daily regular interaction with staff such as deputies who had a heightened risk for substantial COVID spread, they could be included. that's where the sheriff is talking about the 6 staff in his office. They had daily interaction with the deputies who were out in the field with a heightened risk. So that is covered. Where I caution the commission though is, and I'm not saying do or do not, is then each department head now saying, well, we did, or we did, or we did. So I do believe that with what the sheriff's provided, his 6 staff meet that extra clause that we found in the final rule, because they were having daily interaction with the deputies who were having heightened risk.
So Mr. Ford and Commissioner Ross, are you referring just to the sheriff's staff?
Correct.
You're not referring to staff from any other?
Well, I mean, the other department heads, they can say, okay, I was at home, I was a county employee for the entire year, but I was doing all my work from home. They don't have any interaction with the public. That's my concern. I was at the sheriff's office for 39 years. I know exactly what they go through. I know the interaction that they have with the public every day and what they had to do during this COVID thing, because I was going back and forth there too. And I just think it needs to be looked at. I really do.
All the staff from every, or the sheriff? Yes, Commissioner Falk.
Madam Chair. Well, I think one of the problems is we can't just focus on the 6 staff members at the sheriff's office. Once we go outside the criteria set forth under ARPA, and which was followed by our committee, once we go outside of that, then you're going to have a new and separate criteria set up as to who falls within those guidelines, or you're going to have some significant legal issues. You know, I appreciate, I think those people did have more risk, possibly in the administration, people in the sheriff's office than others within the county, but they probably had less risk than, for instance, public health or a correctional officer. So the question is, how far are we going to bend the line, so to speak? And I appreciate Sheriff Schneider talking about the, his deputies having more risk, and that the people in his office staff are paid less. But that was kind of taken into consideration by the committee when they came up with a lump sum payment. The lump sum actually affects the salaries of lower paid people more than it does higher paid people. So that's a way of addressing that, and they did do that. But I think before we go any farther, we're going to be spinning our wheels here all night. We need to set up a group, and I had given this thought, and if I hadn't been concerned about my cold or whatever, my intention was, had I been elected chairman, was I was going to appoint Commissioner Rost and Commissioner Ingen to work on the matter, because they seem to be the most vocal about the concerns. And that's appropriate. And I don't know if they want to work with Ms. Steele or Mr. Ford on it. Both of those 2 individuals have put in a lot of time, and they came up with a plan for us. And now the question is, do we expand it? But we have to be very careful if we start expanding this plan. So I'm not saying it can't be done, but it better be done legally and carefully. So, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Falk, for your comments. Mr. Sheriff Schneider.
Madam Chair, just one final comment. I'm not asking for anybody to expand the rules. Mr. Ford stated that what was listed in my letter met the criteria. All I'm asking for is the commission to approve giving ARPA pay to 6 staff in our office that were essential for public safety. If other department heads wish to go through the work, at that November meeting, the commission ordered Mr. Ford and Ms. Steele to contact all the departments to see if there's people that were applicable. I don't know if they got any letters outside of mine, and that's obviously not for me to know, but I believe that I provided the information that was requested. It meets the criteria, and I'd request that the commission approve ARPA pay to the lowest paid personnel in my office. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff Schneider. Okay, what are the wishes of the commission? Ms. Steele, I have a question for you. If we look at premium pay for the 6 additional staff who would qualify or would fall under the premium pay discussion we're having, what would the cost of that be to the county? Sure. I don't want to call you out without, you can give us a range, that would be fine too.
It's gonna be approximately, if you took the 2,000 by the 6 people, that's gonna be a little bit high.
Okay. All right, well, at this point, I don't know if we want to continue spinning our wheels, in the words of Commissioner Falk, to look at every department. I think that at this point, if somebody would want to put $12,000 additional to the 6 staff at the Sheriff's Department to fall into that category, that would be an option as a motion. I don't want to continue to utilize the time and efforts of our Human Resource Department, our Sheriff, our Attorney, State's Attorney's Department, or the time of Mr. Ford. In all due respect to everyone who works at the county, I know that we've tried to do the best we possibly can. I know our wages are not at the level they need to be, but we have done the best we possibly can in giving them step increases and giving them COLA increases in our 2022 budget, as well as our previous budgets. We're always thinking about staff and retaining staff. Therefore, if somebody wants to make a motion and we can go through the voting process for the individuals that have been outlined in correspondence from Sheriff Schneider, I would feel that would be appropriate. At this time, I do not feel it is appropriate to continue looking at the policy, continue looking at ARPA. I don't think we're going to see anything different in it at this time. And I guess I will leave that up to the wishes of the commission.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I would make a motion that we pay the 6 support staff to Grand Forks County Sheriff's Office because it does follow the criteria as outlined by Mr. Ford. And if the other agencies want to do what Sheriff Schneider did to see if they comply with that ARPA criteria, they have a chance to come before the board as he did.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Question,
Yes.
Mr. Ford, does it follow the criteria? My understanding is it didn't.
For the 6
Yes.
of the sheriff. Yes, ma'am. So it would, there's, when you're in the premium pay section of the interim final rule, excuse me. Yes, it discusses exactly what the sheriff has elaborated for those 6 staff. Yes, ma'am.
And no one else came.
We reached out in the realm, per the direction of the board, we reached out to the other departments that fall under public safety, for example, public health. So for example, we reached out to PSAP. But there was, I mean, being visiting with Ms. Alt, her staff weren't out in the field, right? So that, and other than that, we haven't engaged with the other departments because they don't fall under public health, public safety, emergency management, healthcare, etc. So, but Mr. Sheriff Schneider's 6 staff, for his description, would fall under the I'll call it, for lack of a better phrase, extension, because they have that daily work with his.
So who else out there would not fall under this umbrella? What other departments?
The human service zone, I'm
You know,
assuming there's
that's-
state,
that's
that's irrelevant.
So that's, doesn't,
Madam Chair, Commissioner Knopf, it really comes down to the board's discretion now. So if there is, the parameters have been met, whatever those parameters would be, and a department can meet those parameters, the board does have that discretion.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I would just add that, it wouldn't only apply to support staff in a public safety role. I just want to clarify that provision. The departments that Ms. Thiel and Mr. Ford already identified as being eligible, I imagine all of them probably have administrative support staff that would equally qualify under the ARPA criteria as Sheriff Schneider's department. In addition, I think those 5 departments were identified to kind of narrow the scope. However, ARPA isn't limited to those departments. The ARPA Act provides that each local government recipient has discretion to determine which departments are critical infrastructure departments. So Ms. Thiel and Mr. Ford's criteria wasn't the broadest reading of ARPA in an effort to kind of limit it to a narrow scope. If the board wished to expand it, it could still fall under the criteria of ARPA. But then it's important that we look at it fair and equitably across the different departments that it may apply to. And I think that's why it's appropriate to come up with a criteria for what are those items that where you draw the line in the sand, so that all employees can be considered under the same criteria. I think legally where it becomes risky for the county is when we have different criteria for different departments, and then in turn treat a similarly situated employee differently depending on the department by which they're working. I hope that makes sense.
Well, and
Okay.
I thought that was something that we kind of, last week, it was same thing for everybody, same rules for everybody.
Okay, right now we have a motion on the floor. That motion was put forward by Commissioner Ross to include 6 individuals from the Sheriff's Department to get premium pay with ARPA dollars. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it, but I also have discussion.
Okay, absolutely. So we have a motion and a second on the floor. Discussion.
Question for State Attorney Watson. How about courthouse staff, State Attorney staff? How big a group are we looking at? At this point, a few weeks after this first came up, many weeks now, department heads should have been stepping up to tell us how their particular employees might fit into this. Sheriff Snyder did that, but I don't know where we are with the rest or how many there would be that actually would meet that criteria of actual close physical contact and the increased risk that they kind of are the prime example of. I'm sure there are others that might be like that. What do you think about that?
Sure, and members of the board, in relation to the courthouse staff that you had mentioned, other than the first few weeks, the court slowed down court operations for maybe a month. Yeah, I can't recall specifically how long. Shortly thereafter, the court resumed operations, including conducting in-person jury trials. So, anywhere from 20 to 50 jurors were brought into the courthouse. Our attorneys were interacting with those jurors, court personnel were as well. In addition to that, because of the court's somewhat rigorous court calendar, Our office in particular always had a contingent of staff that was in the building. Our staff and attorneys were meeting with law enforcement officers on, various matters that we were working on. In addition to that, working with defense counsel, distributing discovery on cases. So certainly, speaking of the courthouse, even though the building was closed for that period of time, there was almost for the full duration of the state of emergency staff in the building. I know it was similar for the judges and clerk staff and other court personnel. And, one of the criteria of ARPA is that the essential work is defined as it's performed, not performed while teleworking. However, because the county structured it where it's that flat $2,000, it's not, the county isn't compensating people hour by hour for where they worked at that particular time. So my reading of the statute is that while somebody may have teleworked a portion of that time, that's not a minimum requirement of the statute. If a portion of the time they met that criteria of regular in-person interactions or regular physical handling of items that were handled by coworkers or the public or whatnot. So the short answer to your question is this could be read very broadly to apply to a significant number of county employees.
Measuring in the court staff or state employees, not county employees.
The actual judges, that's, yeah.
So just to clarify, Madam Chair, Ms. Thiel and I, when we went through this, we didn't try to draw a line in the sand. We actually did read the interim final rule as it has to be these categories, these employees. I'm not going to speak for Ms. Thiel, but I've received a lot of anonymous nastygrams under my door from employees. They're not happy about this, as if we're picking and choosing favorites. That's not what happened. We went through it the best we could. We tried to come up with the most fair, equitable process possible for the commission to look at. We did read the interim final rule. In our opinion, it said it's these occupations, it's these employees within occupations. That's how we came up with what we came up with. So if we interpreted it wrong, I guess we did. If not, we were just trying to make it as fair and equitable to those first responders, those public safety employees, et cetera. So I just want to clarify that. There has been some animosity around the COB lately about this, so.
Thank you, Mr. Ford. Any other questions or comments by the commission?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to the payment of premium dollars or pay, whatever, to the support staff at the sheriff's office if we have a criteria that applies to all of the people in the county. Yeah, but I am opposed. I'll vote no on this, just that it applies only to a small group. And I think we're going down, once again, a slippery road if we start picking and choosing groups, because we're going to have this every meeting. We're going to have a new group in front of us. And I think they have to be all treated appropriately or equally. And I do know Mr. Ford has been getting notes under his door. And, I don't know that employees should be excluded just because their department head didn't step up for them. So I would encourage this commission that we look at all that might fall in this category. And I think it has to be somewhat of a narrow category, tailored around the work that the people in the sheriff's administration did, that they had, a fairly consistent opportunity of coming in contact with COVID versus someone who, we all did, whether you're on the street or wherever you were, you had some opportunity. But I think you have to have had a significant chance to come under the premium pay and not have us subject to some criticism down the road. So thank you. That's all I.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
Well, I'm sure.
Yes, Commissioner.
When I look at the potential of unlawfully excluding people in different categories, I think I would like to see us table this for the next meeting and have the discussions about who else could be affected. We don't want to be having this 4 meetings in a row with another department coming back because now they've figured out that maybe we should do this. I think the sheriff's office is a starting point for the ones that probably would be at the top of the list, but I think we need to know the others as well. And we really should clarify the criteria. I hate to push it off another meeting, but I think that's what we should do.
Any other comments? As the person who's chair at this point, I feel that the administrator, the county administrator, and the human resources time has been, how many hours do you think between Mr. Ford, Ms. Wamstead, and Ms. Thiel?
It's a lot, ma'am. A lot. Tough to put into real numbers, but we probably started working on it in May and brought something to the board in November.
Okay, I don't want to belabor this any further than we have to. And the reason why I'm saying that is because this is something that needs to be done. We could continue on down this road for a very, very long time. I don't want to be disrespectful of the people that we choose to be program managers, department heads. We hire smart people. We hire people that do a good job for us as a commission. We know that the staff that we hire are very cognizant of the importance of decisions being made, whether it's county tax dollars or federal dollars or state dollars that are placed into our hands, whether it be roads and bridges or public health or emergency management or the whole gamut. And I feel that we'll never come to a solution that will meet or match every interpretation of the law that we have. The federal government gave us dollars at the beginning of COVID to help us through the pandemic situation. We got additional dollars from ARPA to continue trying to figure out how we could keep staff employed, keep operations going, helping the public, getting the public immunized, looking for safety for people. My decision at this point is we're not going to have another committee meeting. Where we're at is where we're at. We have a motion on the floor right now of wanting to add 6 individuals that work for the sheriff's department. The sheriff has put in a letter. He's come to committee meetings. He's talked about this. It's on our agenda right now, today. This motion is going to go through. We're going to vote on this motion, roll call vote. And what happens is what happens, because we have a committee of 5, which we talked about earlier, about 5, 7, 9, whether when we're working on home rule. At this point, we need to make a decision. We need to vote on this particular motion. And when we move forward, we move forward. I'm not trying to be disrespectful of the sheriff. I'm not trying to be disrespectful of any employee that is employed by Grand Forks County. As I said, I think we have done the best we possibly can to give them additional payment for their years of service, give them COLA. What was our COLA this year? 5%?
We got a 4% COLA and a 2% market in April.
Okay, and into 2022?
Well, I mean,
is the-
that's in 20.
Okay, so there's a 4% COLA, there's a 2% market in 2022. That isn't including the step
For
increase.
qualified employees, yeah.
For qualified employees that also get a step increase. I think we've done very well with our employees. Is it gonna make a difference whether people get $2,000 or not? I hope not. But we're gonna move forward. And I apologize if any county person, staff has a problem with that, please give them my phone number. And let them send notes to me or text to me or emails to me. I took this job not for the money. I took this job to make a difference in this county. I would love someday to go to Bismarck, but I don't have the patience. I think I get kicked out. I'm sorry. But where we're at right now is where we're at. We have plenty of other fish to fry. We don't have everybody fully immunized. We've reached 100 deaths in Grand Forks County. That's 100 times how many people that are impacted. Whether it was the medical staff, the emergency staff, whoever, all the families that have losses over this. This $2,000 additional, who's gonna get it in their hands, does not make one damn difference to those 100 people or their families. That hurts a lot. So we're gonna go through this motion. I'm gonna do a roll call vote. I'm sorry, I'm emotional. I apologize. And then we'll move forward. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. It's going to be a roll call vote. Commissioner Falk, yay or nay?
With a short explanation, I'm voting no because it's only one small group, and I think we're opening ourselves up to some real legal problems by doing that. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Knopf,
I agree.
you're no?
No.
Okay, Commissioner Engen,
Aye.
you're a yes?
Yes.
Commissioner Ross?
I,
And Commissioner Peach votes no. So the roll call vote is 3 against, 2 for, and the motion does not pass. All right, again, share my phone number. I'll take full responsibility. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the home rule charter. We had a meeting with the Administrative Services Committee. I believe that the committee came out with the suggestion, Commissioner Fall.
Yes, that was a couple hours ago. I'll have to remember. The decision, I think we were all at the meeting, is to move forward with a selection of a home rule charter committee. And I think there's some problems as far as, what the expectations of people that might have put their name in or that we are looking to add to that committee. But that we put that committee together, hopefully by next commission meeting. I think we have an administrative service meeting set for the next meeting at 1:40. Yeah, at 1:45, if I'm right. Is that right?
Yes.
And we proceed at that point. And we look further into the charters that are available. In particular, I think we talked about Fargo or Cass counties, I should say. But there are several out there. I think Mr. Ford has sent some of them out. They all, and we talked with a couple of people, Cass County and Lloyd Amdahl, the charters tend to all follow somewhat of a similar pattern. So, thank you.
Okay. So are you making a motion, Commissioner Falk?
That was it. Thank you.
That was it. Okay. There is a motion on the floor. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second this, but I can't repeat the motion. For mistake.
Okay. There's a second on the motion. Any discussion? If there is no discussion, assuming a roll call vote, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
I,
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. The next item on the agenda is Finance and Tax Director establishing the 2022 precincts. Ms. Nelson.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, there's a requirement that we set the precincts the year preceding the election. There was a census taken, and every 10 years, the legislative lines are redrawn. We lost the district in Grand Forks County. We do not have District 19 any longer. In front of you are the districts we have outside the city of Grand Forks. We have 17, 18, 20, and 42. 42 is a new one for the rural area. So I set these precincts as close to what they were as I could. In Legislative District 20, they're pretty much exactly how they were, but 1, 5, and 16 are different because the legislative line actually goes down I-29. So I split townships. I have no control over that, and I talked to Senator Holmberg about that, and he said it's allowed by law. So it just makes it a little bit more difficult for me. But I need a motion to approve these precincts election.
Okay,
So moved.
we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? If there is no discussion, assuming a roll call vote, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. The next item is the Grand Forks County Election Security Plan.
Madam Chairman of the Commission, the Secretary of State asked the counties to come up with a election equipment security plan. I do have that. I got logged out of the computer here, but I'll get back to it, page 60. So this just outlines how we secure our election equipment and the processes that we follow. And I'm going to submit this to the Secretary of State just so they have it on file. And so I would ask that I get approval for the county election security plan and logic and accuracy testing. One thing I thought that's not included in this plan, but I think would be a good idea is that if we had a camera in our election equipment room, so we could prove to anybody that nobody has been in there with that election equipment other than the staff.
Would you want to add that onto the existing plan that we have?
Well, it's not going to be part of this security plan, but maybe if I can get a motion to accept this security plan and then maybe we can discuss that camera.
Okay. Any discussion? What are the wishes of the commission?
Madam Chair, I would make a motion that we approve the Grand Forks County Election Security Plan.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Commissioner Knopf. Any discussion? If there is no discussion, assuming a roll call vote, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, in writing this plan, I thought we probably should have a camera in that back room, just as far in this country. It would be a good idea. I did ask Dean Dahl for an estimate of cost, and he said about.
Okay, total cost for that camera.
That's what he thought.
Okay, and is there funding available in the general fund to cover the cost of the camera?
We would take it out of the election fund.
Okay. What are the wishes of the commission?
I'll make a motion to move forward with the purchase of a camera for security purposes with our election equipment.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, assuming a roll call vote, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried.
Quick question. What's with the camera and something you have 24/7 all night long in the dark room? How would this work?
I don't know how the cameras would work. I would
Motion
assume that,
detector camera?
I would guess that's how it works. I don't know how our security cameras work now.
I think if you have motion, the light would come on and so would the camera. I think they can be bought that way.
Okay. I would think they'd be similar to what we have in this building, and if they go 24 hours a day, I don't know, or if they only go on movement,
Or you could put a night light in that room.
and then they would stay on.
Stay on all the
Oh,
time.
I see.
And Ms. Nelson, since the motion has passed, if you just want to check with Mr. Dahl and just get back to us to give us information on how that's gonna work, that would be
I
great.
will do that.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the COVID response team. Mr. Ford?
Yeah, Madam Chair, members of the commission, the team decided to suspend our weekly scheduled meetings and just start meeting as needed. So other than that, no update.
Okay, thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is State's Attorney, Ms. Wamstead.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, thank you. I just have an update for the board. As you're aware, we are a party to the opioid litigation that is taking place currently nationwide in federal court. There has been some movement on that. A proposed settlement has been reached. And so we have set a special commission meeting for December 21st at 2:30 p.m. For that meeting, I have invited attorneys from the North Dakota Attorney General's office to attend and provide their input to the board. Also, our counsel that represents Grand Forks County has also been invited to attend as well, so that we can explain kind of some of the parameters of the proposed settlement, and then it would be up to the board to determine how you wish to proceed as to whether or not you wanted to opt into that settlement. Just so you're aware, the deadline opt-in is January 2nd. So we either need to make a decision at that December 21st meeting or have an additional special commission meeting to make that determination before the January 2nd date. If anyone has any questions before then, I'm certainly available to answer those questions. One thing I would note is it is a evolving process. I've had a number of discussions over the last several weeks with our counsel as well as the Attorney General's office about, you know, how exactly it would play out for Grand Forks County. So I'm certainly willing to provide you any information, but that might change between now and the December 22nd or 21st date.
Okay, any questions for Ms. Wamstead?
I have a question. What would be your recommendation? The 21st or setting it earlier just in case there's something that we need to act on and keeping the time limits in mind all the time? I guess my preference would be I'd rather meet early and earlier just in case.
Commissioner Knopf, members of the board, I completely understand your rationale. It was the recommendation of our council that we set this meeting for the last scheduled commission meeting of the year because it is kind of an ever-changing process. And so at that point in time, we should have the latest and best information to share with the board so that you can make an accurate determination as to how to proceed with what we know right before the deadline.
It always will change after we've made the decision anyhow, so
Yeah.
that's just a given.
We still have a few days for a special meeting if we absolutely had to do it.
Yeah.
I agree, we should wait till the 21st before we decide.
And that meeting on December 21st will be publicly noticed. So that'll be good. Thank you very much. All right, the next item on the agenda is committee reports. Commissioner Falk, do you have anything to report?
No, you've heard me. I had the meetings with Mr. Amdahl and with Cass County on home rule, and that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Commissioner Falk, or Commissioner Knopf, sorry.
All I have is we had a library meeting on the 17th of November and all things are going well there, and extension office I'm on their advisory committee as a result of being a commissioner, and so that was my last meeting. And so I feel bad about having to say goodbye to that group, but they know that they can count on me if they need extra help anytime. So, but whoever gets that group the next time around, they're very nice to work with. So December 1st and 2nd, we conducted highway superintendent interviews, and there were 7 applications, and they were all internal. And it has been offered, and we will hear at some point in time what the end result of that, but we had several that were very good applicants, or at least to my thinking. And then just a reminder that on the 14th is the superintendent's retirement, and I believe that that's at 11:30, so there'll be a program and a lunch. And I believe that you have to RSVP for that.
Yeah.
So if you have,
I'm there.
if you haven't,
I'm there.
I'll eat your lunch if you can't make up.
Oh, I'll be there.
I'll have 2 lunch to go. So other than that, that's about all.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioner Angen.
Nothing unusual to report, except that I hope you all got my email with the slides put together by the folks at the, I guess, the Attorney General's office on open meetings, open records, open meetings. And the best thing to do if you have a question is bother State Attorney Wamstead, because she deals with this more than we do, but it's a really important topic. And I've run into it in a couple of different situations outside of the commission. And we don't want to be the subject of an Attorney General's opinion, let's put it that way. So anyway, I hope you get a chance to read through that. It's good stuff.
Thank you for sharing it.
Yes, thank you very much.
So it's a free CLE hour. And for some of us who aren't retired yet, I still have to get CLE credits. So it's nice to get through one.
Commissioner Ross.
Okay, MPO, we had a meeting, of course, we talk about bridges. This Friday at 10 o'clock at City Hall, the ad hoc committee that has been looking at the Lincoln Park or the 32nd Avenue crossing are supposed to have their report in to the MPO. And this is not set in stone as to whether it would be there, but their final report will be at that time. The other issue is Mr. Ford and I are on the Courthouse Security Committee meeting. And we had that last week. And there's some things they would like to see done over there with the security desk at the courthouse. And so they were pretty much advised to come to the commission in January for the infrastructure or capital improvements to talk about their endeavors and what they would like to see done. The other thing is we had Mr. Ford again and I were at the Chamber of Commerce talking about infrastructure money coming from the state and maybe the federal government and the city prioritizing and the county prioritizing not only this side of the river, the other side of the river, to see what we could use that money for or work together between the two states to come up with a situation. So I talked briefly about the Roland Young Memorial Bridge, AKA the Muirfield Bridge, which is what I think should be done. And there was a lot of support for that on both sides. Actually, Mayor Gander over in the east side, he supported that endeavor. Mr. Phelan from the city talked about an underpass at 42nd and Demers Avenue to get under that train. And so we are looking to get people from both sides of the river to go to our North Dakota DOT and the Minnesota people to go to their DOT so that we can work together to get something done. So that's where that, Mr. Ford, do you wish to add anything to that?
Commissioner Roth, you recapped it perfectly.
Okay. So
Okay,
that's it.
all right, thank you very much. As far as myself, just for a meeting in the future, tomorrow morning, I'll be going to the Chamber of Commerce meeting at 7:30. I think it's the VGEA committee, and individuals from the economic development will be coming forward to talk about the Fufang group and Project Peony. So I will be attending that. Other than that, I don't think I have anything else to report. So the next item we have is unfinished or new business, the 2022 County Board of Equalization date needs to be set.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the commission, the Century Code requires that you set the County Board of Equalization for the first 10 days of June. So Amber Goditis is requesting that you set it for June 7th, 2022 at 4 p.m.
Okay, June 7th, 2022 at 4 p.m. Do we need a motion for that?
We do.
Okay.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. Assuming a roll call vote, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. The next item on the agenda is number 17, correspondence. We have one piece of correspondence from the Whiskey Creek Wind 10-year plan.
Madam Chairman, members of the commission, that is just a requirement that they have to file that every 10 years. This plan. So there's no action needed by the commission. That's just their 10-year plan.
Okay, and then the next item is we have a thank you from the 4-H groups. And thank you, I guess, goes to Ms. Knopf for all of her participation and volunteering and helping with that group and serving as a commissioner and on their committee, their board. So thank you very much, Commissioner Knopf, for all of your work. That brings us to the end of the agenda. Does someone want to make a
So
motion
moved
to
to
adjourn?
adjourn.
Is there a second? Assuming a roll call vote, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same sign. Carried, and we are adjourning the commission meeting. Thank you all very much for your